Hi, everybody. So my name is Marcos Duran. I work for Serconte. I am a CRM and marketing automation strategist, and this year I was asked to join an awesome cohort of people to become a Salesforce marketing champion, and I also co-lead the Austin ParDreamin user group. I'm going to hand it over to my colleague here, Russell.
Thanks, Marcos. So as Marcos said, my name is Russell Thomas. I am a UI designer and front-end developer with Serconte. I have 15 years of experience and a desire to make the digital world a more inclusive place, one div at a time.
Awesome. So thank you, Russell. So today we have a real good treat for you. So what we're going to do is we're going to take it briefly back to the fundamentals. What is a landing page? We're going to outline the technical anatomy of a landing page. And then between Russell and I, we're going to show you some cool tricks and tools that you can use to, maximize what you're doing with your landing pages. And at the end, we'll just summarize with obviously questions and with some things to keep in mind. Hand it over to Russell.
Sweet. So the first thing I want to introduce is a little disclaimer about our presentation. While you don't need to be a super savvy developer in order to implement our tips and tricks, a general understanding of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript will certainly help you to deploy these suggestions in your organization. I would also encourage anyone interested in learning more about coding to search out one of the many resources online to gain new knowledge and unlock your unlimited potential, such as Serconte's Code School for ParDreamin, coming in February.
Awesome.
So with that, let's dive in. Next slide, please. All right, so what is a landing page? Well, Unbounce uses the term landing page to describe a campaign-specific page with a single call to action, and that's the important part. It's not a page on your company website and should not be bogged down with items like site navigation, filler content. It should be designed for simplicity with a singular focus on getting the user to a completion action, such as providing personal information in exchange for some gated content. Let's take a look at the next slide. All right, so here you'll notice we have a very typical two-column landing page design. Notice how we've broken down the main content areas into subcategories. So starting at the top, we have section A, which represents our Fabicon. More on this later. And this is also where you would display the title of the landing page. Section B, obviously that's the browser's URL. Nothing we need to talk about there. Section D and C would be our header section. Now, typically on a website, this is where you would find your logo, maybe some subtext, and your site navigation. Notice here in our design, again, we are not putting in a website navigation. It's just the logo, keeping this section very clean and simple. Sections F and G represent the main content, where we can provide clear and concise messaging to the user. So we give them a good headline, some body content, some supporting text to pay off the headline, and a reason why they should be here. Section H is the almighty pardot form. And finally, when we look at I and J, this is again the footer section, which you'll notice is very, very clean. We have a little bit of copyright information, maybe some contact us links, and maybe a social media section if you so desire. Let's go to the next slide. So the first step in making a pardot landing page work for us is to take advantage of pardot regions. There are 5 region types in total, and depending on how we use them, they can greatly increase or decrease the controls we give to a pardot user. You can sort of think of the pardot region types as a pair to the HTML tags in which they'll be used. A pardot region type of link would go with the anchor tag. Notice in our section 1, you'll see that only the URL path is an editable area for you. So if you put a region type of link on an anchor tag, you don't have access to the inner HTML or the text. You only have access to the URL. So when we look at section 2, this would be a region type of image. This allows you to update the image content directly from providing a source URL to an image that's housed on a server, or also within your Pardot content area. Looking at number 3, this is a simple editor where you'll notice you can only change the text in this area. You don't have access to any text styling. You can't bold the text, increase the font size, change the color, anything like that. It's a very locked down area just to change the text. In section 4, which is our WYSIWYG type, this is the default that Pardot gives you. So if you don't define a type, you will get the WYSIWYG, which gives the Pardot user full access to everything that's available to them. All of the stylings, insert images, tables, code, you name it, the whole kitchen sink is available to you there. Let's go to the next slide. So the important part to remember when we're working with content regions is 2 things. Number 1, every Pardot region in a landing page must have a unique name. This is how Pardot is going to know which section of the landing page you're trying to edit. The second part is the proper use of content region types can save you a lot of headaches down the road when perhaps one of your colleagues comes in and decides to experiment with a well-designed landing page. So knowing when you want to lock things down, like maybe an H1 tag, you want to be simple so they can't change the styles. Whereas maybe the main body section, you want to be the full WYSIWYG editor so that the Pardot user can do anything they want in that area. So with that, I'm going to pass it back to Marcos to talk to our next topic on Fabicons.
Thanks, Russell. So now what we're going to do is we're going to focus on a couple of external tools that you can use to very easily put together short snippets of code that you can add yourself to your layout templates of your landing pages. The first thing that we're going to talk about here, content regions are great to make sure that you're locking things down, but it still allows people to, go in there and edit something. Fabicons is one of those things that's almost like an afterthought a lot of the times. And so on your website, if you go now, you'll see something very similar to number 3 here. If you go to the ParDreamin.com website, you'll see that their tabs not only display the logo, but it also has a brief description. This is very similar to probably what you have on your website. But if you go to look to your Pardot landing pages, you may not see this. And it's probably because you're missing this one little piece of code. If you use this tool called fabicongenerator.org, it will look like number 1 on the right. And then you can actually just drop your logo. You go through a very short creation wizard, and then it generates code like number 2. When you get that code, all you have to go and do is grab that, copy and paste it, open up your layout template, and if you're in class, you go through this, going through marketing, landing pages, and layout templates, and you go ahead and add this section, usually near the top of the code. It's very easy. You can host the logo within Pardot or externally. A lot of times, if you already have it on your website, it's very easy to just grab it from there. But it ultimately creates what you see on number 3. There is a help article on the Pardot knowledge base that walks you through how to actually add the code, right? And you could do so that way. If you know how to code it, you could also just go directly and just do it yourself. Other ways, the generator is very helpful. Number 2, here we have fonts. So according to Design Bold, which is a website that really talks about different types of designs, not only websites, landing pages, even emails, and so forth, they say that when it comes to your website's font choice, it's really going to help deliver the perception of how that person should look at your brand. I've been to websites, especially some older school websites, where like the font is really small, or when you're on your cell phone, it just won't adapt, stuff like that. And it's just really hard to maybe find the information that you're looking for. An open source resource here that's free is Google Fonts. You can go and you're leveraging their API. via the style sheet to essentially populate a different font for your landing pages specifically. It's very easy. You can go to Google Fonts, find a font that you would like. In this case, we just chose a random one called Sophia. And if you looked at a number one, it just, it's very easy to just go and search. Fonts like Roboto, Montserrat, which are very popular, you're going to be able to, find those there very easily. Sometimes your company build their own fonts, so those you may not be able to find it. So there's going to be a different way to import those, but we just won't cover that today. After you find your font, Google actually produces what you see in number 2 and number 3 for you. Number 2, you would just grab that piece, and very similar to where you would have added it to where you put the Fabicon code, you would add that to your website. What that means is that's a directory now that you can pull from to the rest of your file for landing pages that you can call out that specific font. Then on number 3 here, we have 2 ways to actually make the font look like the way that we want. We can call out a class and say pretty much all of our font on our landing page is going to, look like this. Or on each paragraph, we can go ahead and add this tag that's on the bottom that says, reference the font from the very top, and then add it to this particular section. This is more for landing pages, even though you can use it on emails. But again, your part of knowledge article is going to tell you the depiction between the 2 different ways that you would want to add these files for specific custom fonts for either landing pages or for emails, and it is slightly different. Additionally to fonts, you may find yourself needing some images. Sometimes we don't have graphic designers to produce really nice images for our website or landing pages. Something that I used to use quite a bit was this open source resource called Font Awesome. Now you do have to create an account. That used to not be the case back in the day, but now you do. And when you do, it's a free account. You also have access to premium icons if you decide to pay for those. But ultimately, same process. You grab this line of code at the very top, you add it to your landing pages, and then they have a whole library of icons that you can use. After you find the one that you want, in my choice here, I chose a gift, and that's what you see on number 2. It gives you this very small snippet of code. And then what you can do is either one of 2 things. If you know that you always want the same icons on your landing page, for example, this is the 3 reasons why you should attend the webinar and the icons always look the same. You can go into the layout template here and just add them there. If you don't want them to be on the template every single time and you only want to use them on specific landing pages, still the same process of grabbing that code, but then you just do it via the landing page editor. At the end of the day, it comes out looking like number 4. These are very specific, smaller icons. You can grab larger ones, right, for when you're doing different types of layouts on your landing pages, but ultimately looks something like what you see on number 4. Moving on, a tool that we use here quite a bit was the add to calendar feature. So now more than ever, right, because of COVID, it has pushed us to do a lot of more digital efforts, including webinars. And so one of the things here, you actually saw this in your invitation emails for ParDreamin. This tool was the one that was used. So essentially, number 1, you type in all your information. You can make a free account. And then it generates this code for you. You grab that, put it into either the thank you content of your landing page, or you can embed it into an actual thank you page. And then when I click on it, on the page, I get this little pop-up of number 3. It's quite small, but it kind of becomes an overlay, and it says, hey, thank you for adding this event to your calendar. And then I chose Google. So that's how it looks like in Google. With all the details that I would have typed in on number 1 on the top. So most of these tools that we show you, you can use them, if you're running Marketing Cloud, if you're running Marketo, if you're running HubSpot, but of course we're focusing today in Pardot. The last one, this is an important one for anybody who's doing end of the year campaigns, social cards. So everybody knows that you can do social posting via Pardot. However, what you actually show people via the Pardot posting process is not always what you would like. Using this tool, you can create actual social cards, and it would actually look exactly as you see in number 3. You can try these for LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. And again, they can work directly on the platform, or you can use them via Pardot. I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Russell so he can discuss this JavaScript.
Yeah. So one of the things that's really important to me as a designer developer is making sure that everything we do is as accessible as possible to the widest range of people. So you'll notice at the top image in the top right there, we have our Pardot required fields, which have a little yellow star next to them. Now this indicates that this is a field that must be required before the form can be submitted. However, that yellow is there's not a lot of contrast between the foreground and background on that. So there is a bit of an accessibility issue here. So there are ways around this. You can, in the Pardot form, you can uncheck that you want to use these stars and it'll put it in text. So you'll have an asterisk, more like you see in the second image down below. But when you do it that way, you don't have access to changing that color of the star. So the star or the required indicator for that field can be lost next to the text. So I've created a little piece of JavaScript on CodePen. And if you don't know, CodePen is a great resource for developers to share little bits of code with the community. You can go to CodePen, you can access these things, you can see all of the code, take it, manipulate it, do whatever you want with it. It's free for community use. So what I've done here is I've created a small CodePen for you that shows you some Pardot input fields, a little bit of HTML, some CSS to style those asterisks, and also the JavaScript to then look through the required fields of the form and insert them. So this way it gives you more control over that section. Again, you can change the color, you could change the size, you could change the placement, anything that you can do in CSS, you'll have access to do for these asterisks. Let's take a look at the next slide, please. So in the spirit of helping you guys do better things with Pardot forms, I've created a second CodePen here. And this is something that comes up, quite often for us is how do you create sections inside of a Pardot form? Obviously, if you're working inside the Pardot form, you know that you can add classes, you can add inputs, you can move them all around, and Pardot gives you a lot of tools in order to create the forms. But the one thing it doesn't give you is the ability to add a headline above certain input boxes or to group inputs into sections. So here again, I've just created a little bit of code for you to go check out on CodePen. And this is going to look through all of the inputs that you put into Pardot. And anywhere that you add a CSS class of section, you're able to insert that title. So here, for instance, we have section 1, which is, maybe our example would be that a user comes and we have a section for personal information. So we get their name and their email and their address. And then maybe we also want to grab some company information from them too, which would be like the company address, company name, telephone number, contact, stuff like that. So this gives you a great way to just use a little bit of JavaScript, insert it into your page layout, and create some distinct sections. So it gives the user a much more palatable presentation of the information. Now I'm going to throw it back to Marcos for a little bit of a recap of what we talked about today.
Thank you, Russell. So yes, so as you can see, there's a lot of things that you can use. All the tools that I shared with you today, we share with you are free. JavaScript, if you don't know it, there's plenty of online resources that you can learn to do very simple things. Today we cover, Fabicons, content regions, fonts, icons, all that list. Some things that we didn't cover on this presentation, but that I covered last time, yesterday on another presentation, was making sure that your tracker domains, right, the URL piece of the landing page, is validated in Pardot. Copy and images and forms, we didn't cover them because everybody knows those are important. Make sure you're using completion actions. And yeah, what we have now is we have about 4 minutes for questions. So what I'm going to do, let's see. Let me stop sharing my screen. Awesome. Let's go ahead and Russell, let's look through the questions and see. Let's see what's going on. Okay. So shameless plug here. We do have a coding school. So if you're interested in learning how to do some of this on your own, feel free to join us at the start of next year. You can pay ahead of time. So if you have a budget, pay for it.
One thing to
Thank
note
you.
about this tool too is that we're constantly updating the material in there. So don't ever feel like something is going to be slightly outdated. We're constantly looking at the industry and trends of the industry, seeing where those goes, and then working those into the lesson plans.
So thank you, both Marks, for answering each other's question. All right. Yes. So if you follow Russell or me on Twitter or LinkedIn, yesterday we went ahead and posted a bunch of those links for my last presentation. We'll probably post them via those two channels later today. So feel free to take advantage of that. What would you say are the top three, Mike? What are the top three most powerful advantages of using Pardot landing pages? I think one, if you're creating engagement studio programs, which are can be very complex drip programs, if that's the term you're familiar with, you can use when people fill out those forms or they don't on those landing pages as triggers. So I think that's one. Number two, I don't know. I would say that I work with some customers that absolutely have no control over their website. So having a part of landing page that's standardized and that they can use and create, landing pages for their marketing initiatives, whenever they need them, has been a blessing for them. So I would say, that's another one. And number three, I would say part of makes it really easy to like hide pages. So not that you can't get like a plugin or there may be a feature already on your theme on your website to be able to hide certain pages. For sometimes it can be tedious, and part of it makes it somewhat easy by checking a box and then clicking save. So I would say those would be the three advantages. But Russell, do you have an opinion on that?
Yeah, I would just add to that having a Pardot landing page versus using iframe embedded into your website, like if you use the Pardot landing page, it's going to be easier to keep the data and move the data around within your system. Also, using embedded iframes comes with its own set of issues where there is no cross-origin JavaScript use that you can do there, so you're limited in some sort of aspect of how you want to change things. And also, you get into issues with the iframe needing to have fixed widths and heights that can create, some less than desirable presentations between mobile and large screen devices.
We had a question from Jonathan. Is there a way to hide form fields on Pardot LPs if the form fields is being filled via URL parameters? I think you can just do hidden fields, right? Like, I mean, that's what we do with UTMs.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. So yes, Jonathan, there is a way. Um, you're not using Pardot Lightning yet? Okay, Ali, no problem. We need to upgrade. No. So all of these I did with actually Pardot Classic, which is what you have in mind, because that's where I spend most of my time when I was developing pages, before I came over to Sercante. We've also done these work with customers that are in Lightning. So in terms of regardless of which version you are, it's the same thing. Yep, when you're correct. Jonathan, if it's not field via the URL parameter, then I want the form to be visible. So I would need to test that, but there is when you fill out a form once, and let's say this is a second form, Pardot can hide the fields from you, like automatically. You don't have to make them hidden; they just hide. So what you could do is just make sure that, like, for anybody that doesn't have data in that field, it will populate, and you can just not check the box to always display. And so for anybody that already has that information, you're not showing the field. But definitely would require a little bit more testing, Jonathan. I'm not 100% on that.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to look at the use case, but I mean, you can certainly do this with JavaScript as well. Then look for the URL parameters, and then use JavaScript to either show or hide any fields that you want. The one thing to note on that is to make sure that it is you are using a Pardot landing page, because as I mentioned, if you are embedding an iframe with the Pardot form, you're not going to be able to grab those parameters in the URL very easily, if at all.
Right. Terrell, good question. I routinely get flack from my tech team on why I host landing pages in Pardot. Good talking point. Yeah, I mean, they're equally secured. We would need to use JavaScript to make that type of update. Not sure, Jared, what you mean. We have about one
I
more
think Jared's
minute
just
for any.
referring to Jonathan.
Okay. We have any more questions? Got one more minute. Cool. Mark, okay, so we have about 4 minutes until the panel. Make sure you guys check out our sponsors booths, and also head over to the enterprise panel. We'll be here for another 2 minutes if you guys have any questions. Otherwise, thank you very much for joining us at ParDreamin, and we'll be Russ and I were talking about this, and we probably will start creating a lot more technical blogs. So if you are interested in that, go and subscribe to the spot for Pardot. There's plenty of really cool ones in there already about landing pages, but we're probably going to get a little bit more technical now that we had this particular session. So again, thank you everybody for attending. We'll be here for another minute, and then we're gonna call it a day. I do have a poll here that I'm launching now. If you guys can answer that on your way out, that'd be great.
Looks like there's a question from Mike on how do you adjust the CSS of a Pardot landing page? But the easiest way to do it would be to create some custom styles within the head of your document in the Pardot layout template. And whatever styles you apply to the layout template are going to automatically be applied to any Pardot landing page that uses the layout template, if that makes sense for you.
Yeah, Mike, there's if you go, I don't know if you're on Classic or Lightning, but if you go to marketing, landing pages, and then layout templates, and then create a new layout template, it produces like 10 lines of code for you that is just default to just get started. Right above that, there's a pick list that you can choose from like 5 out of the box templates. You can experiment with those in order to try to improve the branding and stuff like that. But you do any changes to the way that the landing page is going to look aside of the content, is going to be within the layout template. All right. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Have a good rest of your day and enjoy ParDreamin. All of our sessions are recorded for the next and available to you for the next 30 days. And again, thank you for all of our sponsors, and we'll see you at the enterprise panel. See ya. Bye.
Take care. See ya.